So as I was saying, like how animals in the wild, they give birth alone. Well, Paul was with me all night. I began having contractions at like 9 o'clock at night, and I was in labor all night, and the boys woke up around like 6. So Paul called our friend and had them come over to pick up the boys, and as soon as he stepped outside with the boys, as soon as I was totally alone, that's when David's head popped out. So I think there's really something to that. As soon as I was alone, like the moment I was alone, that's when the baby came. So anyway, I thought that was a really interesting point. Another thing to consider is how to deal with well-meaning friends and relatives. This is a very controversial decision, and people have very strong and passionate opinions on the topic. My advice is to not tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. The reason why is actually, it might seem like, like this, like a betrayal to your mom or your best friend or whoever, but the reality is you're doing them a favor. You're doing them a favor by not telling them. You're not allowing them to say something or do something that might later jeopardize the relationship forever. People you think might even be fine with it or might be supportive of it, you'll be surprised. You'll be very surprised. They'll be gossiping about you. They will threaten to call 911 if they know that you're in labor. They will threaten to call, whoever they can call to just make you not do this horribly irresponsible thing, and you don't want that in your relationships. Frankly, my personal opinion is that unless you are emotionally really steady, you have very firm resolve, and you're unflappable, basically, which in my experience pregnant women aren't. But if you have those qualities, then go ahead and tell whoever you want, but don't expect to get support. Don't expect people to be happy for you, because they won't be, and that's just the truth. You can tell them about how it's a peak experience. You could tell them about how it's safer. You can tell them all the statistics you want, but they're not going to listen to you. What they're going to say is, if I didn't have my baby in the hospital, my baby would be dead. Now, of course, if we step back from that and think reasonably, there's really no way for anybody to know that, honestly. And also, most of the time, when they say those things, you have to realize they're coming from a place of probably having a very disappointing birth experience themselves, maybe some post-traumatic stress disorder related to their birth experience or experiences, and this especially with women. Men, not so much. They're not quite so judgmental on it, but women can be really judgmental on it, and I think a lot of it has to do with guilt. They feel guilty for the way their birth went, with their children, for the decisions they made, and they act out by lashing out at you for attempting to have this peak experience, attempting to live fearlessly, and for just being rational and intelligent and researching these things, because a lot of women still think that if the baby's born with a cord around their neck, like that's a life-threatening experience, whereas it's not really that life-threatening if you know what to do. The problem is that doctors aren't trained in that. They're trained as surgeons. They're trained to cut you open. That's what they know how to do. And so that's what they do best, and that's what they suggest, because that's what they feel comfortable as. They're like, why would I mess around, trying to let this woman have a natural birth breech when I have never been trained in this, and I already know how to cut a woman open and sew her up, and I can be out of here and home for dinner. Why would I go to all that trouble? I mean, it's just logic from their perspective. And also, to them, it seems safer. But the reality is, there's so many problems that come with a C-section. It takes so much longer to heal. It's harder to bond with your baby. It's harder to breastfeed. It's painful. It's harder to lose weight afterward. And also, there's a lot of situations where if you wanted to have your baby in the hospital, or if you wanted to have a vaginal delivery later on, if you've had a C-section, a lot of physicians won't allow that. They won't care for you. So that's something to consider as well. I really wish that I wouldn't have told anyone. Personal opinion. And then when it's all said and done, then you can tell. And there's also the option of, you can still get care. Go ahead and go get care. Go get prenatal care. Go get the allopathic prenatal care. You don't have to inform them of your intention to give birth at home. You can always change your mind. Get care, make sure you're healthy, and then plan on having the baby at home. And then when the baby is born at home, baby came so fast that the baby was born at home. You know what I mean? Nobody has to know. It doesn't have to be this public, statement. Personally, I chose not to get prenatal care because I did not want to go through all that nonsense of being bossed around and told what to do when I already know I'm perfectly healthy and I care for myself. And all my other pregnancies, they never found anything wrong. I ended up going to all these appointments, show up on time, and then you wait an hour to get in to see somebody for 5 minutes for them to poke around on you. And no, I was just like, no, I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to have this be a really peaceful, really organic, natural birth experience. And it was. And it was wonderful. And David's been a calm, sweet, happy baby from the beginning. Very trusting, because newborns, we kind of treat them like they're animals or like they're inanimate objects, but they're totally sentient and they're totally conscious. In fact, I think that in a lot of ways they're more aware than we are. And when they're born to somebody that they don't know, they know that. And it's terrifying to them. And they're handled roughly.